James.
Hi, my name is James, and this is James Loves Games. Today we're going to be talking about Dragon Quest XI. I can't do that with two hands, so I have to do Dragon Quest XI. These are my final thoughts on the game after I beat it. I know I said in my last video, jokingly, I might add, that it would probably take about 6 months for me to make my final video review, and I'll be darned if it's not really close to 6 months since my last video. But I chipped away at the game a little bit every day, and I'm happy to say it turned out much better than the first time. So let's get to it. For the visuals, not much has changed from 30 hours to 130 hours. The game looks the same. It still looks beautiful. It's got Akira Toriyama's signature style. I like the look of it. If you like Dragon Ball Z, Chrono Trigger, any of the Dragon Quest games, you know his style. You love it or you hate it. I personally love it. So I love the look of this game. There's just nothing else to say about it. The animations are beautiful. The character design is great. I love the familiarity and all the monsters. And I gotta say, a lot of the late stage boss animations and the pet power animations and everything, it's just epic and beautiful and fluid, and I just love the way this looks. It's not perfect. There are still some parts in the game that don't really look as good as other parts. I'm looking at you, boats on the ocean, but it's still fantastic, and I will keep it as a 9 out of 10. On to the sound. Now, my biggest gripe on my first impressions review was the lack of variety in the music. I'm the type of player who, when I play an RPG, maybe I'm spoiled, but I kind of expect to have a new song for each town that I go into, just to give that town its own certain style and flavor. And the first 30 hours, I'll say the first act, there's 3 acts total in the game. The first act, you hear a lot of the recycled music, and it kind of gets old after a while. But I gotta say, after the second and third acts really get going, the game opens up and the music really expands, and the repertoire of all the music, there's so much more going on. In fact, not to spoil too much, but once you get to Act 3, they really go back to a lot of the older Dragon Quest games and use some different overworld music that I think just sounds fantastic, and it's a nice callback to those older Dragon Quest days. And so, in light of there being more variety in the later half of the game, and the quality of the music in the special edition on Switch still sounding fantastic, the orchestral renditions of the soundtrack, it just sounds amazing, so much better than the MIDI version that you get on PS4. Not to knock the PS4 version, but the Switch soundtrack is light years better. I had the sound at an 8 out of 10, but in light of all the new songs that they introduced, not new songs, but in light of all the different songs that they introduced later in the game, I'll bump it up a point and give it a 9 out of 10. The gameplay didn't really change a whole lot throughout the game, but I will say that you get a lot more stuff to do later in the game. Again, I don't want to spoil anything for anybody because there's a lot happens between the first act, the second act, and the third act of the game. And so I don't want to ruin it for you because it's just so fantastic. But I will say that once you get to the third act, the post-game content really opens up, and you get tons of side quests, you get secret dungeons, you get epic hero gear, you get super ultra hard to beat bosses that are hard to find and hard to beat, and it's a crazy amount of content, and it's all just a blast. I will say I got kind of frustrated with some of those bosses later on. Some of the secret sort of optional side quest bosses are a little frustrating, but also rewarding once you finally beat them. And so I'll bump up a point to gameplay. Even though it was a fantastic game to begin with, it somehow manages to get even better by the end of the game. So 9 out of 10 for gameplay. Time to talk about story. Now, if you watched my earlier review, story was really the weak point of the whole game, and really the weak point of my whole review. I gave it 6 points out of 10 because it used a lot of JRPG tropes. The story seemed really predictable and just you could see what was going to happen a mile away, and it just didn't really hook me in. It wasn't a bad story, but it was just a lot of, I've seen this before. But wow, my opinion has changed quite a bit. They threw a lot of curveballs my way, and they upended a lot of gaming stereotypes. They sort of used some other ones in their place, but I will say that I was pleasantly surprised with how things turned out. And I got more and more invested in the characters in my party the more I played it, much more than I thought I would. I started to care more about them, and they sort of introduce more elements to each character's individual story in Act 2 and Act 3 so that you get a better feel for why they are the way they are. And I think they did a really nice job of that. And so in light of that, I apologize for my 6 out of 10 for the story. The first act was kind of riddled with tropes and stereotypes, but they really picked it up in the second and third acts. It got a lot better and surprised me a lot. So I'm going to bump it up to 8 points out of 10. My final category for Dragon Quest XI, replayability. Does this game have what it takes to make me want to come back to it 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road? Does it have what it takes to keep me interested for over 100 hours? Well, you already know the answer to that. In my previous review, just playing 30 hours, I predicted that it was going to be a 10 out of 10. And I was wrong. It's not a 10 out of 10. It's more like an 11 or 12 out of 10, the replayability of this game. There is so much to do. There's crafting all of the legendary weapons and equipment for all of your party. There's beating all of the super hard end game bosses. There's going to Tickington and completing all of those quests from the older Dragon Quest games. And it's all just so much fun, and I never wanted it to end. And honestly, I feel like there's a hole in my heart that I can't fill with another game, because this one, I loved it so much, and it's just, I'm waiting patiently for Dragon Quest XII, whatever that is, and whenever that's going to come out. I don't know if it'll even be as close to as good as Dragon Quest XI, but I put 130 hours into this game, just playing it on normal and just going through the main story and completing. I did most of the side quests. I think there was one in the casino where I have to get a jackpot, and I didn't really want to sit at the roulette table for 2 hours trying to do that. But there's just a ton of stuff to do. And if you're the type of person that loves to just dive in and really do a deep dive and just binge on a game like this, this is the perfect game for that type of thing. It's perfect for quarantine. So if you've got a lot of time to kill, like we all do right now, Dragon Quest XI is a fantastic way to do that. And shoot, I killed probably about 5 or 6 days worth of time on this game. So the replayability is great, and I highly recommend it. As for the bonus points that I originally gave the game, I believe I gave it 5 bonus points at the end of my last review, and I'm going to stick with the 5 bonus points. But I will say that one of the main compliments that I gave the game initially was that the casino was so much fun. There were so many things that you could do and spend time just sort of getting away from the grind of leveling up and fighting monsters and just sort of relax and play some casino games and have fun. They kind of get old fairly quickly, especially once you realize you can put a lot of these games on autopilot just to sort of farm the casino tokens. And so they were fun for a while, but didn't really have much staying power. But I will maintain that the game deserves 5 bonus points because of all the extra stuff I've already mentioned. All the Tickington quests, all the extra post-game boss fights, all the epic gear for your party that you need to find throughout the world and construct. There's just so much stuff to do, and this game is so polished and well put together, and I had such a fantastic time with it. In conclusion, very rarely does a game exceed my expectations the way Dragon Quest XI has. I typically have about a 3-week attention span when it comes to most things, including games. But Dragon Quest XI somehow managed to keep my attention for days and weeks and months. And it was just every lunch break, every evening, I wanted to just chip away at it and play more and more. And I was always really sad to have to turn it off, and I was really, really bummed out once I finally beat the game and there was nothing left to do. So that should tell you all you need to know. Is Dragon Quest XI the best JRPG ever? Time will tell. I'll say probably not. It's a great game. It's certainly the best JRPG of this gaming generation. Is Dragon Quest XI timeless? I think that it definitely deserves to be in the discussion. It should be brought up. And if anybody tells you otherwise, that's okay, because that's their opinion. And this is just my opinion. So if you agree with me, that's great. And if you don't, that's great. But I had a fantastic time with this game. And if you like JRPGs, or really any RPGs in general, this one is a must play. And if you've never played a Dragon Quest game, you don't like JRPGs, give it a shot anyway, because maybe it'll turn you over to our side. My name is James. This is James Loves Games. Thank you for watching. Please like the video. Please subscribe. And I'll see you next time. Bye.